Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show. Our guest this week is one of the most recognized and respected artists in the music industry today. Since 1965, he has been a member of the iconic band, the Oak Ridge Boys. Please welcome to the Rosie and Bill Show, the man behind the music and the man behind the beard, William Lee Golden. Hi, William Lee. Welcome to the show.
Hey, hey, Rosie and Bill. Great to be with y'all here today. I've heard a lot about your show, and I'm just excited to be a part of it here.
Well, that makes three of us because we are all excited and we've got a lot of ground to cover, William Lee. And we're even going to take a little bit of a trip back in time to those early days in Southern Alabama with your sister Lynette, your grandfather's radio show. But before we do that, I have to ask you perhaps the most important question that's been on my mind now, and it has to do with today. How many sit ups did you do today?
Well, today I haven't, but I normally do about 200 sit-ups a day, and but I just got back from a road trip here, and
Oh, okay.
first day or so, kind of take it easy. But I try to do that, like try to do it 4 times a week, But when I'm on the road, especially, I make it a part of my day. In the afternoon, start getting my focus before I clean up. I move all the things out of the way, and I get a flat place. Normally, at my age now, I like getting a flat place on the bed, and I do 50 sit-ups and catch my breath, and do another 50 and catch my breath. And I do 4 rep of 4. And but I started out, doing 25 sit-ups, and then did 25 the next day, and then doubled it. I did 2 sets, and but then for a while, I build up your stamina, I guess, to be able to do that many in a row. And but it became easier, and the better shape I am, it's always easier to do. If I lay off for 4 or 5 days, then it seems like I have to get
Well,
back up.
you're motivating me, I'll tell you that.
Well, it makes me feel better, and honestly, it also helps me to sing better. It keeps my diaphragm in shape, and when you're singing, you want it to flow out, and you don't want to have to strain your throat to try to get the sound that you're wanting because you don't have enough support uh, in the bottom, and your diaphragm for it to flow out. But you learn things the older you get, and so I should have been doing it a long time ago, probably. But I've been doing it for several years.
Wow. Well, that's great advice.
Yeah.
I got into it. I got into the sit-ups because of I enjoyed walking too, and I like walking 4 or 5 miles a day. And in the wintertime, it was hard when you'd be on the road at a early Christmas tour every day, and you not know where you're at for as the hotel locations and the streets. And so I found that I needed the exercise, and so on snowy days I would get the floor and do my sit-ups, do 100, 150, a couple of hundred. And so that's kind of how I started out, is kind of to replace in the wintertime the walking that I was getting. But and I've just kind of evolved over doing it year round. And I felt that what I would, and then I like to walk sometimes and then come back and do sit-ups too. And that's when I really whip in shape quick, is when I am able to do that.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you. And we also appreciate our first and longest running sponsor of the show, Tom and his team of insurance professionals at the Malin Agency. If world-class customer service and doing business with someone you can trust is important to you, give Tom and his team a call today for all your insurance needs. Well, William Lee, I have to tell you, I appreciate you sharing that. And tomorrow morning when I get to the gym, I'm going to see how many sit-ups I can do. And I'm going to work up and see if I can get you. When I do, I'll let you know when I get to that same point. But for now, what I'd like to do is get back to what I said a couple minutes ago, and that's kind of turn the clock back to those early days in your career back in Southern Alabama. You were singing with your sister. You were on your grandfather's radio show. What role did they play early on, your sister Lynette and your grandfather, in the start of your musical journey?
Well, as I look back on it, I've been thinking about that recently. I was down here a couple of weeks ago, went down to the farm and visited with my sister there, and my sister still lives there right across the street or across the road from where our family home is that we grew up in, and I still go back to the home place, and we still have our home place. And so I was there with her, but I was also thinking, that she actually taught me how to play guitar and chords and rhythms when I was 7 years old and 8 years old. I was playing before my hands were big enough to make some of the chords. I would have to abbreviate those chords, and at the same time, she was teaching me how to sing harmonies with her, and I knew, and it was your voice. You make the chord with your voice of what you're making with your hand, and which notes you're hitting, and the harmony part. So the notes that you're hitting around the lead part, but she taught me all those things, and it's through the years, through all the songs that I've been fortunate to sing harmonies on and to be able to sing on through the years with the Oak Ridge Boys, and it's been a educational experience too, because every song you sing, there's something you have to learn the song. You got to learn a new song, and it's becoming part of the songs that you sing. And I've always loved the harmony sounds and the harmony voices. And
is that what drew you to the Oak Ridge Quartet when you first saw them?
Well, that was I was drawn by the youthful singing at that time that they were. They were a young group of guys that they had two albums on Warner Brother Records that I was attracted to and drawn to as far as the music. And anyhow, it was, and I saw they had something that was different than all the other gospel groups. And I thought they had something that had the potential to do what we did, and that was our music to expand and not just sing about one day a week, which most people in gospel music, a lot of people only want to hear a gospel song on Sunday. They're not interested in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday hearing gospel songs. So, and in life is that way too. We live 7 days a week. So, the songs that we sing now are about living all the 7 days a week, and the life that we live, and the love and family. And there's a lot of things that we sing about, but to follow your visions and follow your dreams and follow your aspirations, and it's being determined and not ever losing your focus along the way. It's there's a lot of naysayers. I remember back, when people would say, man, you try to explain what you could see that could be done. And they said, no, but I did not allow negative comments to deter me from my goals and my visions and following my visions. So that's what I found that I've done in life, and it's what I'm still doing. As things come to you, you can see it, and it's things that you know that you should be doing, and it's you're desperate to get into it and do it till it's completed. So and again, you have to motivate yourself in life and activate yourself, and you kind of got to go after what you want in life, and it don't always come in the mail to you. And opportunities come.
William Lee, you just said so many
Yeah.
Just important and inspirational things in that. You have to keep your focus. You have to just refuse the naysayers, and you have to go after what you want and have that the vision.
Yeah.
Then the motivation to pursue that vision. When you got the opportunity to become one of the Oak Ridge Boys, what were those early days like? But was it everything you had hoped it would be, or did you see that the vision was going to work out the way you'd hoped?
Yeah, it was, but again, you got to go to the bottom before you can climb back to the top sometimes. And it's, you got to get your foundation. Sometimes you get it when you're down. You get you get a better grounding in life, and you get a better grip of who you are and what it takes. It's just being on time. And if you give your words, you got to be as good as your word. Or as my dad always said, a man will lie to you, steal from you. So you got to be. And he also said that if a man's word's no good, neither is his signature. So you kind of find out to be true along the way too. So, but life is trusting everyone until they give you a reason not to trust them sometimes.
You also, William Lee, you mentioned a couple minutes ago, you talked about vision. And I wanted to touch on that next because in looking back at the history, you joined in 1965. A few years later, in the early to mid 70s, Dwayne and you were joined by Joe and Richard. And then I think it was mid 70s, you start working with Jim Halsey, the legendary manager. And he
Right.
had a vision. And that vision was a little different than what you guys have been doing. Like you said, the gospel music 1 day a week. He kind of had other ideas. And
Yeah.
so, you talked about vision. What did that mean to the band, and how much of a role did his vision play in where things ultimately went?
It was the combination that made it all happen, really, because he was a guy that you could share your visions with, and he could see it too then. And then he would light up, and he said, yeah, and when we do that, then we can also do this and this and this. And it was like he could see what it was not like that you were talking to a fence post there. Sometimes you share your vision with people that can't see it. They're not, and it's kind of like wasting your breath. But then there's people that can see it. And Jim Halls is a visionary man of his own. And, so he's kind of he's one that believes in visions. And I know he's a visionary person, but it's when visions combine and then all at once you realize that it makes a whole different, more beautiful picture is what it makes. And so that's what it was. And his expertise and what he was capable of doing, he knew where we were and what we needed as a group and a band to showcase our talents and to get us with the right labels that could also share that same vision, because we had a group of talent, and what we needed was someone to help to mold that, put it with the right people to get to record the right songs and have the connections to get it to the radio. And Jim Halsey had the connections because he had a LA office. He had Dick Howard running his LA office, and Dick was a high-powered television agent that was running his office. And Halsey focused on taking country music to places that it was not accustomed to go in. And he got us on the Tonight Show. I'm not sure how many times, but a lot of them. And he had people like Roy Clark that Jim represented on the Tonight Show. and Roy even hosted it several times. So but Jim is still around. He's still managing the Oak Ridge Boys, and he's 92 years old. And I saw him this past weekend in Tulsa. So
That's incredible. That's just, I love to hear stories like that. And it sounded like, perfect synergy with him and your group. And, he did get your music out to the mass and more than just, the country audience in 1981 with Elvira. Did you all have
right.
any idea that that would be the success that it was?
At the day that we recorded it, no, we didn't. All we knew is it was such a fun song to sing that day, and was having a great time. And it was we were we were aware of the song because the song was 16 years old at that time. It had been released, and Dallas Frazier wrote the song and had it on an album and had released it as a single, but it didn't get the traction. Kenny Rogers, the first edition, had it on an album, the Something's Burning album, and but again, it did not get the traction and was never released as a single. Charlie Rich had it, Elvira, on the Behind Closed Doors album, but was never released as a single and wasn't pushed as that, but yet it was an album cut, but then it had been around and cut by different people. But then when Ron Chancey brought it to us and said, I think this will work, and what we'll do is let Joe sing the lead, and then on these lines here, we'll let Richard do the Papa Mau Maus. And so that's what made the song different than any other version of it. We cut it, did our version. We was in Spokane, Washington, the first night we sang it on stage. And this was before, it was about the time they would get ready to release the album. But we went in to rehearse 2 or 3 songs, but that song we decided we was going to drop it in the middle of the show that night, just see what the response. In the middle of the show, it just dropped the song in there. We did it, and at the end of that song, that place exploded. I've never heard such a loud on and on. They kept cheering, would not stop. I mean, just would not quit. We backed up and said, what do we do? Sing it again. So we sang it again. So it was the same response the second time. Would not stop. We did it the third time. Still the same response. We did the rest of the show. There was nothing got that crowd up to the energy level that they had been on that song in the middle of the show. We wound up singing our last song that was scheduled to do, and then went back and did Elvira one more time, and it was the same response then. We did it again in Seattle the next night. Same response. In Portland the night after that, the same response. On a Monday, we called the label and said, hey, we don't know what you plan to release on this album, but this is what's happening with this song out here right now this week. And they chose to follow our lead and what was responding. And if we felt like that it was doing it here with different cities, that radio, it would have the same effect in radio. It was released to country. It went up and just spilled right over it, went right to the top of country charts, spilled over into pop music, and went to the top of the pop charts. So it's a magical song with changing the arrangement of throwing it around and making it a group song.
It worked.
Yeah. And what's so fascinating to me about that is I knew that there were a couple things about that song that I thought were unique, but what you just shared just takes it to a whole nother level as far as the way people reacted before it was even released as a single. But
yeah,
I believe at the time, I think it was the most successful single in the history of Nashville at that point. And secondly, it also helped elevate some of the prior albums to gold and platinum status. That is just the power of a song unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, it did, and but again, it spilled over, and we've got platinum singles that it did, and that was unheard of at that time for
Yeah.
singles to sell over 1 million singles, you know. But it was selling multi-millions of singles, and then the album came out, and here it goes doing the same thing. So it became like a triple platinum album for us, and still the biggest thing we've ever done.
Wow. Well, and over the years, William Lee, when you look at it, we just talked about some of the numbers of Elvira, but to me, what boggles my mind sometimes when I look at just some of the numbers and some, over 40 million albums, dozens of hit singles, above and beyond and well after Elvira, Bobby Sue, American Made, the list goes on and on. You guys have won every award there is to win musically: ACM, CMA, Grammy, Gospel Music Hall of Fame, Country Music Hall of Fame, Grand Ole Opry. If somebody was to look, and they would get carpal tunnel trying to scroll down and see them all. And now we fast forward, here we are, 2024, and it's your farewell tour. I'm curious of a couple things with that. Number one, Joe Bonsall stepped away. He's not touring right now. So how are things working out along those lines, number one? And number two, what's it like having the opportunity to see your fans this one last time?
Well, what happened is Joe was struggling for a year, and then the struggle got worse this past year. And it was something that Joe had to say farewell to at the end of December, at the end of our Christmas tour. And so that threw us into a situation where we had several dates that were booked for this coming year. And it was just talking about a farewell tour with Joe prior to him basically physically not being able to take tour the way that the demanding of touring is, and the climbing up. Anyhow, he was dealing with a physical issue of some degenerative muscular issue that he's dealt with and or been dealing with, and it became impossible for Joe to do that. But there's a young guy that God works in mysterious ways. Young guy, Ben James, come recommended to us, and so we brought him in, talked to him. He went to with us, and and Dwayne told him, you just need to learn the songs, and these are the songs that you need to learn. And we don't know when or how, but at some point we're going to need some help here. And so Ben James, he comes from bluegrass music, and Tony Brown that produces George Strait and Reba McEntire, and has also done, worked with Patty Loveless and Vince Gill, and has produced some stuff with Vince. He knows them and has known them since Vince first came to Nashville, and back when Tony was singing with Elvis, I guess, or playing with Elvis, is when he got to know Vince when he was working with Emily Harris, I think. But Tony heard that Ben James sing. He said, and after he heard him sing, he said, man, he said, you've got a voice. He said, you've got a voice that comes only once in a generation. He said, have you ever had anyone tell you sound like Vince Gill? He said, I've never heard someone have a voice like this, Vince Gill. And so anyhow, he has that quality we still haven't had a rehearsal, and he still hasn't missed a note on anything that we've done. He's got a great ear. He plays guitar himself, but hasn't been playing on the Oak Ridge Boys show. But he come out of bluegrass. He sang for a couple of years with Doyle Lawson, who's one of the old bluegrass kings, and he also played for about a year or so with Daly and Vincent. Traveled with them, and that's where we actually met him. Was we did a show with Daly and Vincent, and they come on, and Joe gave him the mic to sing a verse of Elvira down at the end of the show up in Wheeling, West Virginia, earlier last year. So then, not knowing at that time that that kid would be stepping right in and doing an incredible job, it's amazing because he's got that bluegrass sound to his voice, and because that's where he comes from, and he also come from gospel music. He loved gospel quartet singing. So, but it all is, like I say, God works in mysterious ways. And we're on this tour, but I tell you, from the things that are happening now on this tour that I've seen, the Oak Ridge Boys, as individuals may say farewell, which Joe had to say farewell, but I think that we should pass the baton. We did not start this group. None of us started it. We all joined the Oak Ridge Boys, and we each one replaced another great singer that was in that spot. So if we're fair, we've been fortunate to have a deep catalog of music that we've recorded, and fans really want to hear these songs, and they'd rather hear the people that sing it, but if they can't, they'd rather hear as many as they can that can sing it. And so as time comes, I think individually that we should, at that point, help find someone that's as good as we are or better, and pass that torch to a younger generation that can keep the music alive for a long time. So that's it's the legacy that would fade away, and it's the music that would ultimately fade away if someone didn't keep it alive.
Right.
So that's where I'm looking at it, and so that's where my heart is. I think that the Oak Ridge Boys deserve, and the fans that have supported it deserve, for us to bring the best four-part harmony to sing Oak Ridge Boys songs as we can bring to town.